Hello, everybody. Welcome to a brand new podcast known as the dEPICted podcast, with the epic being very key in that word. We're basically describe a bunch of things going on in the gaming world, speedrunning world, basically anything that comes to our minds, and also just hanging out with guests. Since this is the first episode, there will not be any guests this time around, which is completely fine. But yeah, so here we are, first episode. I thought that a good topic for today's first podcast would be the world of Nintendo. As you guys know, the world of Nintendo is it's very interesting. It developed a bunch over the years, starting off obviously with the 1980s when we had the video game crash of 1983. They marketed their NES as a toy, which was definitely the move, and Nintendo just blew up in the early, like, late 80s, early 90s, and then some competitors came in and PlayStation blew them out of the water. Xbox came in, is now doing pretty well. It's basically just PlayStation is mostly the things that are being talked about nowadays. Nintendo has kind of just stayed at the family part, and also in Japan, when most likely their market is also there's also one in North America, which, if you couldn't tell, I am part of that market. It's kind of strange to think that by just marketing your stuff towards the family generation, you kind of lose your sense, you kind of just it kind of just seems off, and you don't really want to be a part of something that is just for family when you're getting older. For example, I'm 17 now. I'm not exactly sure if it's like the route they should be taking, but it is Nintendo after all, and you can expect a bunch of weird things to happen. Like, we still have the Smash route, but most of their stuff is mainly just towards Japan's audience, and they haven't really focused so much on the North American range. So yeah, not too much to talk about, like just other things wise, and like with our guests or anything. It's mainly just the fact that as the thing is, for platforms we used in the past, like the 90s and 2000s were like they brought you some timeless classics of games. Like, for example, Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. The list can go on and on. Literally any game you can mention. Super Mario 64, GoldenEye 007, 2000s, and just introduced Wii Sports and motion controls. Like, Nintendo has had some really crazy ideas that have just blown up. Like, Wii Sports it's like the number 4 most selling game of all time. Basically, if you got a Wii, you got Wii Sports. That's basically the case for the seventh, like fifth, sixth, and seventh generation. Even earlier than that, third, fourth. They've had some good successes. For example, the SNES, the some of them not so much successes. Of course we had the SNES and the Wii that were pretty good successes, so along with the NES. But then there were ones that kind of just didn't do as well as they thought they were trying to do well with. Like, the GameCube didn't do that hot. Nintendo 64 was kind of just eh. And plus, the PS1 was just releasing there. PS2 was releasing there, and just kind of blew up themselves. Then you had the Generation 7, which is the Wii era, and also the PS3 era as well. the Wii did pretty well, and moving towards the 2010s, they really needed to step it up. But then they released the Wii U that kind of just tanked it a bit. They also had a few other failures as well, like the Virtual Boy. The handheld lineup, on the other hand, has been going strong for a very long time. 3DS, mainly just DS and the Game Boy, were really just taking off and just did so well that it just it just seemed imaginable, because you know that Nintendo had always had good ideas with developing games, getting developers to work on those games, and publishing those games under there. But then you mess them up by either moving developers with franchises, pre-orders that kind of just tank. There's so much I can just go over that it's gonna be too much for me to discuss under one roof. First of off, starting in like the 80s, it was like when they marketed the thing as a toy. It had like the robot operating buddy, or Rob for short. It was pretty cool to see that they marketed it as a toy so that video games would finally be recognized again. And that was a good marketing strategy, definitely for Nintendo, because they didn't know what else to do. The SNES continued that. You're playing with Superpower, and then introduce more games, Super Mario World, Super Mario Kart, a bunch of other games I can't really list on top of my head right now. And then they went to the Nintendo 64 era where games were still going strong, but then there was the problem of controllers. And the Nintendo 64 definitely had that major issue. Like, you expect me to use 3 prongs, I probably would be saying you're crazy. Like, basically an alien would have to use it normally. Just, I don't get it. And then the GameCube definitely really stepped it up, but people just did not like the small disc because Nintendo at the time wanted to avoid piracy, which at the same time, but which kind of makes no sense considering the PS2, which had normal discs, sold way more than what the Nintendo GameCube did. It was just kind of strange to think that they would try to avoid piracy just for the GameCube, when the PS2 sold like 5 times, or like maybe even 10 times more than what the GameCube have sold in its lifetime. And that definitely takes into part to today, like what you see for like Nintendo's, like, you don't want them to like to mess with, like, to basically make fun of their stuff, and they're just is like, oh yeah, this is like a family audience. I don't like people who have language and all that. I mean, it's fine. Like, I understand you wanted to market it, but if they market it as not for kids, then that's fine. It could be marketed as not for kids if you play Nintendo games. You should just not attack them then just for no reason whatsoever. And I think that's just like where you take a step back in the industry. But then people are gonna look at you as being like, oh yeah, this is an interesting console. Should I buy it? Yeah, I should buy the Switch. It looks so cool. Can I play online? Oh yeah, you have to pay $20 like per year just to play online. And I'm like, does that really make sense? Because most people who play online play like 1 or 2 games online, like Smash, Mario Kart, Splatoon, bunch of other games. Like, I just don't see the point of that. Like the Wii U, the Wii, they didn't have any type of that stuff. You didn't need online membership just to play online. And the fact that you have to pay more extra money from the Switch just to play online, I mean, there is some benefits towards that. Like, you get NES games, you get SNES games. But it just seems unnecessary. Like, they have, like for example, for unnecessary things, you have Super Mario 3D All-Stars for the 35th anniversary that was canceled in March. And that same goes for Super Mario Bros. 35, which you can't even play anymore. Like, I don't even understand why that was made a thing. I mean, they are doing some things right in the gaming world. Like, they opened up something in Japan for that audience because that actually really makes sense. They opened it for people to explore. But then you get to the point where it's just like, okay, do I really need to pay for this game? Like, some games, like, for no reason, cost way too much more than they should be. Like, why is Mario Golf Super Rush $60? That should be like a $40 game. Actually, not even like a $30 game. Like, I understand they have like that update and stuff. If they get more updates, it actually made the game better. But there's just so many unnecessary games that are just that just basically get so much traction because they have online play. They are a game like Super Mario Odyssey, which is open world, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, which might be coming out soon, whatever. They had Skyward Sword HD. It's just kind of, I would say it's like unnecessary in some aspects. Like, they release a Switch OLED model which has a better stand and then like a bigger screen. That is for basically people who have not bought the Switch already, or like a collector. Because if you have the Switch already, you're not gonna want that. And basically, they're trying to market it like it's a new console or something, which obviously you are not gonna get. I don't understand what Nintendo's doing at the moment, because they're marketing games that people don't really play that much. I mean, for example, they market Fortnite more than they market some of their new games. Like, they have like new releases, like indie releases. They're not gonna care about those. They're gonna care about their Nintendo release stuff. But why would you care so much for games such as like free games online? Why would you need to care about that when you can care about games that people are actually gonna have a good experience for? Like, really good games, like well received by critics. It just doesn't really make that much sense. I think a lot of people can agree with that, because we've had so many good games in the past, like dating all the way back. You have Ocarina of Time, you have basically the entire Zelda series, the entire Mario series. Well, most of the Mario series. I would say the new Super Mario Bros. Series definitely was unnecessary. I mean, the first game was good. The second game was good. Like, it introduces multiplayer. But then you released games in the same year, which was New Super Mario Bros. 2 for the 3DS and then New Super Mario Bros. U for the Wii U. The Wii U one was unnecessary. The 3DS one, I kind of get, but it's just eh. That's basically what it is for, like, most games. When you release them to an audience, they don't basically know what to play. Like, another example, you have games such as Game Builder Garage, which is basically for the Super Mario Maker world. But do people really want to care for those games? or do they just want to play games like back in like older generations, such as the Wii, such as Wii U, basically any generation of games? As more, they have to introduce like a lot more things new that would get people like they introduced a lot for the Switch. They were doing it very good in 2017, 2018, even 2019 a little bit. But then 2020 came around and it was just like nothing really happened. Like for example for Smash, they introduced characters that people do not want, and they just really not focusing on audiences. For example, they just canceled a Smash Melee tournament that even isn't really relevant because it came out 20 years ago. Yet they still do not want it because it's a modded game. When there's literally games such as Mario Kart Wii, uh, literally any type of game, and you basically say, oh yeah, Melee is not getting carried for all of that, and it's because it's a Smash game. Like, why would you go out of your way to cancel a tournament just because it's Melee, or just other reasons? I don't really know. It just, they can, like, Nintendo's a good company. I still support them and all that. It's just something needs to change. They've been around for a long time. They've done a lot of things right. I just, from this point they're slowly declining. They were increasing when the Switch first released, but now they just kind of went steady in 2019. In 2020 they went down, and 2021 it's like a slight increase, but not like major talking point for anything. It's just weird in my opinion. I don't know what else to say about it because despite Nintendo's like several several like trying to put their points in the right direction, I don't see why like the world of Nintendo would. It's like basically the world of Nintendo in a nutshell is we want to market our games to kids, mainly just kids. But that's going to do it for this podcast. If you're interested in watching new episodes will be released uh, as soon as possible. And see you all later.